Well, first of all, welcome. I've
Thank
lost
you,
count
Ian.
of, welcome, Andrew. I've got Andrew Thornton with me. I'm going to do a little introduction, but first of all, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yes, on this, yes, well, it's not raining anyway, at least out there. So it's a nice day in my book. Andrew, so I'm delighted to have you. I met Andrew through when you owned Thornton's Budgens.
Hmm.
And Thornton's Budgens was the first UK retailer to introduce many plastic-free packaged products. And in fact, over a period of 10 weeks, you managed to switch 1,800 plus product
Hmm.
lines from plastic into non-plastic, which
Yeah.
was quite some feat
Hmm.
with the help of A Plastic Planet. So
Yeah.
well done for that. Andrew founded Thornton's Budgens in 2006 and then latterly sold it in 2021. And he has since focused his passion and his energy helping business leaders drive sustainable and purposeful change. Educated at University College Dublin, he joined Mars Confectionery in 1984,
Oh, that's a long time.
focused a long time ago. Yes, and you're focused on product research, I understand.
Amongst
Um,
other things, yes.
he's just written a book called Putting the Heart Back into Business, which will show a link where that can be purchased from his website. And yeah, so first of all, very welcome. We're going to
Thank
get
you.
straight into it. I always start with the first question, which is, what do you like doing when you're not working? I know you're a very busy man.
So, two things. I love being outside. So, running, swimming, cycling, walking, skiing. So,
Okay, very
the,
active.
I split. I split my time between southern Germany, where I am now. So we're in the Alps. We're surrounded by mountains. So,
Beautiful.
and my my good my co-author and the woman in my life, Eudora, who is German, got me here on but this is for the skiing. I love skiing. So on
Right.
Sunday I went skiing in Austria for a couple of hours because I can.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And I was this afternoon. We went out for a walk into the river, and I went for a swim. So I'm an outdoor swimmer all year round. So
Wow. What's in the cold water,
yes,
presumably?
very good for you, very good for
Wow.
you.
So whereabouts in Germany are you?
Near Lake Constance, just on the
Okay.
Austrian border. I mean, literally, we are 5 miles from Austria. And what we've discovered is the Germans do many things well, but food and restaurants is not their strong point. So if we're going out to eat, we go to Austria. This is much better, basically. So sorry to those Germans who are related. And I think in the cities, I've been to some amazing restaurants in Berlin and Hamburg and places like that. But we're sort of out in the countryside a bit. So anyway.
I didn't realize you were
That's
so.
all the German people, any German people watching, but there you go.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be some. So, what's the most inspiring place on the planet that you've had the fortune to visit?
India. And I've
Oh,
been to India 5 times now, I think.
mhm.
But 4 since I've kind of gone on this personal development journey, discovery. And every time I go to India, I have a profound experience. And I learn something new about myself. And the whole thing about that my purpose in life is about putting the heart back into business. I discovered that when I was in India. And then the detail of my purpose now, which is all about being a visionary heart surgeon and helping leaders to heal so they can help other people to shine. That came to me, the exact wording of that came to me on a leadership walk in India with a colleague of mine, and I brought some CEOs from the UK with me, and we spent 8 days walking along the river Narmada. I always get it wrong, Narmada, and very profound. So I'm overdue. I haven't been to India for 4 years, so I'm overdue a top up of my. I don't know. Every time I go there, something magical happens. So
That's wonderful. Yeah, I also love India. It's a magical place and lovely people, aren't they? And so open-minded and welcoming.
yes,
That's for sure.
yeah, yeah.
So of all the projects, you've come from a corporate confectionery business and then moved into retail. So of the things that you've done, what's been the most inspiring project or venture that you're most proud of?
I think I'm going to choose two, if I'm allowed to do that.
You
So
can
the
do
first
what you
one
like.
you've talked about, which is the plastic-free project. And the second one is writing this book, Putting the Heart Back into Business. And the two are completely connected to each other. So I'm going to talk about the book first, actually, because so when I had a midlife crisis in my early 40s, I was running a consult. So between Mars and being a retailer, I ran a consultancy, a small boutique consultancy called SRCG for 18 years. We worked with suppliers and retailers. We did strategic work with them. And, you know, it was a good company. We did good work. But I had a midlife crisis. It was like, is this what I'm going to do for the rest of my life? Is this it? There was a feeling of, have you come across the Japanese concept of ikigai? Yeah. So
yes,
for your listeners, 4 concentric circles that overlap in the middle. And the Japanese principle is that this is what gets you up in the morning. So it's what you're good at, what you love doing, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. And if you can have a life that lives in the center of those 4, you will be really fulfilled. And in my consultancy, I think the thing that was missing was what the world needs. Because did the world really need another retail strategy for XYZ retailer or another category management project for XYZ supplier? So I bought a couple of supermarkets, as you do when you have a midlife crisis. Actually, looking back, I can join the dots back to I was seeking for a different way to run a business rather than the profit-focused one, which is traditionally how many companies are still run. So we used, after I had 2 stores originally, lost one carelessly to competition because a Waitrose opened beside my store next to the Tesco, round the corner from the M&S. Too many shops in one place. But that was a blessing in disguise because I went to India, discovered actually what I'm seeking is a business with a heart. And the next 7 or 8 years was the process of what does that mean? Using the Belsize Park store as the laboratory to experiment with my partner Eudora and other people, different ways you can get people to open up and to be more truly themselves. And we developed a concept around authentic leadership, which we now run in training programs on, and so on and so forth. So having decided that it was the right time to sell the supermarket, it was also right. Now I've been playing with this book for 7 years. Now is the time to write it. So I made the decision to sell the supermarket in the summer of 2020, sold it summer 2021. And then over that period of time also worked on the book, which comes out on April 21st. And I should be prepared because I should have a photograph of the front of the book to hold up to you, and I can show it to you on my phone. I'm just going to
show us on your phone. Go on.
Well, it's in a file somewhere. And that is a distillation. Now, of course, I'm not going to be able to find it when I need it so quickly. I wish I hadn't started doing this. But
we'll share a picture of it when this gets posted up.
No, I can't find it because I'm under pressure. Yes, show a picture.
Don't worry.
And that's a distillation of what the whole thing is about. And the essence is that if you have a company that has a very clear purpose, and you then let people get behind that purpose and be authentically themselves, and you create psychological safety, so it's safe for people to be themselves. And Google did a study in 2015 that showed that it's the biggest single differentiator between the most and least successful teams with psychological safety. So you make it safe for people to be vulnerable and be themselves. So in Thornton's Budgens, our purpose was we are the community supermarket that really cares about people and planet. So that was our guiding principle pretty much from the beginning, although we formalized it in words 3 or 4 years into owning the stores. And we had a manifesto which said about the values we had, which we call heart sets. And we then helped people to be themselves. And that's quite a thing in a supermarket because the supermarkets are traditionally command and control. Edicts come from head office. People in the store do what head office tell them to do, and everybody does what they're told to do. And people don't think for themselves. So,
And presumably, I mean, that must have had a huge impact on staff as well as customers. But what did the staff make of these initiatives? Did you retain staff for longer, and what were the benefits?
Absolutely. So our average length of service when I sold the store was 8.5 years. So that is a supermarket in central London.
Wow.
That's pretty impressive. Amongst the leadership, the senior people, in old speak, managers and supervisors, but we used to call it the self-leadership team. The average length of service was 15 years. Now, I owned the store 14 years. So in fact, there's only one of that team who had joined after me. So we developed, and the guy who ran it before I took it on within Budgens was really good with people. And then he just thrived further within that environment. So we basically kept people, yes. There's a lovely story when, you may remember when the living wage first came out and there was a path to get to £9.20 over 4 years. And Lidl went straight to £9.20. So every other independent retailer I know in London lost loads of people to Lidl. We did not lose one single person. And that would have given people on the minimum wage a 25% pay increase. We lost nobody. Because what you find is when you look at all this, it's not about money. Once you have enough money, if you have no money and you're starving and you're sleeping on the streets, then money is important. But once you get on the basic Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the bottom level, the basic physical needs, it's not about money. And people said at Thornton's Budgens that they stayed because it was family, they loved the trust they were given, they loved the appreciation. One of the guys, Jahid, interviewed in the book said, because you'd already interviewed a number of the people from the store for the book. And Jahid said, well, for me, appreciation is more important than money. So the fact that people went out of their way, as we did all the time, to appreciate each other and we had a thing about looking for things going right. So retail, the classic retail is a guy goes around with a clipboard, ticking off, yeah, okay, you need to fix that, that's not right. But never says. So we would, practice going around looking for things that look fantastic to tell people, oh, that's really great. So therefore people grew. Now the context of that, so 2 great achievements, writing the book and then the plastic-free project. I have no doubt that without the purpose we had and without the work we did on opening our hearts and being authentic, we could not have achieved what we did with the plastic project. And what we found Ecoplaza in the Netherlands, that a Plastic Planet had worked, but we had seen what they had done. Oh, wow, this is, firstly, I thought, oh shit, why didn't we think of doing that? That's a great idea. And then, okay, well, so I contacted Sean, tracked down Sean from Plastic Planet, and we met, we all watched, 4 or 5 of us sat in the little tiny room in the back of the store and watched, is it Plastic Ocean, that film that's really...
Oh, yes. Yeah, amazing.
And the bit I will never forget was the submarine that went down to the deepest part of the oceans, you couldn't even put a human down. It was a remote submarine, and it was lined with plastic bottles. And that was the moment where we all looked at each other and thought, yeah, we have a responsibility
got to change,
to do something, and we can do something. So we did, and this was in July. In August, we did some research. On the 1st of September, we said, right, we're going to go for this. We're going to target identifying and launching 1,500 plastic-free lines by Guy Fawkes, which is the 5th of November. And why 1,500? Well, Ecoplaza had 750, so we thought, why not?
You're going to double
Sean
it.
and I are both kind of. We both read the book about big hairy arse skulls that an American guy wrote years ago. Well, one of the key bits I said to Sean all along was, we're going to have to raise some money to have one of your people here full time, because otherwise we are so busy, we're never going to get this thing done. And we had a wonderful woman called Frankie, who was you remember Frankie, who was
love Frankie. Still love Frankie.
Extraordinarily persistent. She would sort of batter people into the ground, and I mean that in a kind way, to get them to submit to doing what you want. And she was perfect for the job. And various times the joint Thornton's Budgens APP team came to me and said, look, can we not put it off till January? And I said, no, it doesn't matter. When we get, it was the 8th of November, when we get to that day, whether we get to 500 or 700, it doesn't matter, because it's only a line in the sand. It's a start point. We actually got to 1,800, over 1,800.
Yeah. Amazing.
And what was extraordinary was we were playing. So in the 10 weeks, we were playing around, taking plastic off bread and putting paper in. And we put the paper on, but we put too much paper on so people couldn't see the bread, so they stopped buying it. And then we put too little on and it went a bit stale. So we were playing around. When we put the cheese from cling film into wax paper, people stopped buying because they couldn't see the cheese properly. And then Sean or you or someone found these wonderful little compostable bags we could just slip the cheese into and seal it over. So 2 days, it was a Thursday. On the Tuesday, we started putting up the point of sale material that we had worked with a plastic plant on developing. And I was walking around the store and customers kept on coming up to say, now I know what's going on, because they'd been seeing us doing this. And we were very careful to be quiet. We didn't want to make a big thing about it. We just wanted to do it because so many people make these big announcements. We're going to reduce plastic by 50% by 2025. And it's in 2010. You know, it's like, it's people can't get their head around it. And the feedback I got from my customers was that they felt all the other retailers were greenwashing. And I remember being not too long ago, maybe about a year ago, in a big supermarket not far from where I live in North London, and leaving the store, there were a big sign that says, "We are reducing our plastic by 50% by 2025. And I thought, I had seen no evidence of anything in the store that suggested, and all I thought was greenwashing. That doesn't, you know, I can't imagine they were lying, but ultimately there was nothing in the store that connected me with that message.
So how did that translate into? I know it's a dirty word. No, it's not a dirty word. How did that translate into profit? You know, did sales go up? Did profit go up? Yes,
absolutely. So in the first 2 weeks of since launch, our sales were up 6%, total store sales, and then it settled down to 4%. Now, Ian, if you think about it, I know people who've spent millions of pounds refurbishing a store and not got a 4% uplift in sales.
Yeah.
So in grocery retailing, 4% is a big uplift in sales. And that was because there were three things. There were people, existing customers, just thinking, good on you. You're doing the right thing. So we're going to spend more of our money with you. Secondly, existing customers saying, right, I'm going to actually, I want to buy plastic-free stuff. So I'm just going to really focus more on my shopping here. And then new customers. And my favorite was a woman who emailed me who was coming once a week, an hour on the bus from South London each way to come to our shop to buy stuff because she could do a whole plastic-free shop there. And no one else was offering that where she lived.
Fantastic. And I noticed that as you evolved, you moved more and more into dispensing solutions, which I really love that. Yes. So you were eradicating packaging completely by doing that, I guess.
Yes. Now that's a tricky one because it requires behavioural change, big behavioural change. And it was building really nicely till COVID hit. And then there was something people suddenly got a bit, it's funny, twitchy. The anxiousness did not impact. So many other retailers who had moved a bit more in loose produce to a bit more loose and less pre-packed instantly reversed all of that. We found that we did a little bit, but mostly produce people through COVID were quite accepting of buying loose produce. But something
they just washed it when they got home.
Yeah, I guess so. But something about the nuts and so on, it did take a step back from it. Right. And I think I was talking to someone about a journalist from the Times about this the other day. The big opportunity there is because we made sure that everything that bring your own packaging was between 5 and 25% cheaper than the equivalent packaged product. Now, we struggled to communicate that properly. There were signs everywhere, but people don't read signs in shops. And I mean, I'm horrified. My local supermarket here in Germany sells a very small selection of loose products. And I thought, great. I went up and I bought some cashew nuts. God, that's expensive. I went to check it. They were 60% more expensive than the packaged product. So
that's not right.
Not going to buy that again. So I think the opportunity here is for a big retailer to market this on a cost basis. It's a cost efficient basis. Plus you're saving the planet. Because particularly with the cost of living crisis and so on at the moment, then bulk buy. And in France, for example, it's very good. You go to any big Carrefour, they have a substantial section of packaging stuff. It's cheaper than the branded stuff or the packaged stuff, and they do good business there. So
So why did you go into retail? What motivated you to do that? It's tough
Well,
business.
my first job, when I was growing up in Dublin at the age of 13, I got a job on my local newsagents. I was too young to serve, so I helped him sort of clean up his backyard and tidy his warehouse. And then I served in the shop. And then, when I was as young as 18 or 19, he used to leave me to run the place when he was on holiday and at weekends. So I got the retail bug. So when I went for my interview at Mars, I think I had a great start because I knew all about selling sweets because I'd actually done it. And all my life, I've worked, even when I was working at Mars, I was working in the retail part. I was working in the interaction with retail. The consultancy was about retail. So I've always they say when you get the retail bug, it's pretty difficult to let go of it. And when I was seeking to leave the consultancy, I didn't even think about anything other than retail. I looked at a number of different retail options, but the best for me was the fact that Budgens, Musgrave, the Irish company, had bought Budgens and were turning it into a franchise. So, and then after the initial conversation with the guy called Martin Heisen, who sort of said, "You what?" Who thought I was completely, and I knew Martin anyway, but he was like, "Okay." From that moment, it was great. I mean, it was 15 years I did it. It was fantastic. It was the right time to sell. It's hard work. I don't miss it. I miss the people.
Yeah. Are the staff still with the new owners? Are the staff still there?
Yes.
Yeah.
But the responsibility and so on. And also it was the point where we've developed this approach to heart and business, to authentic leadership. And while we were, as a sideline, we were offering this to other companies, and we have a few companies where we have done training and so on and so forth. We were never going to be able to really write the book and get it exposed to a much broader audience as long as I owned the supermarket, because that was too consuming.
So tell me more about purposeful leadership, putting the heart back into business. Can you tell me a bit more about, tell the listeners more about that? What does that actually mean in practice?
In practice, it means starting with having a purpose. So we all basically seek some meaning in our lives. We all want to make a difference. None of us really want to trudge into a job that we're doing just to pay the mortgage. Lots of people do it, but no one really wants to do it. So people want to make a difference, and most companies, ultimately, when it comes down to it, the primary aim is about making money. That's the bottom line. And more people are realizing that actually is not necessarily the best way to go forward. And if you look at, I talk quite a lot, in the book I interviewed Dave Lewis, the former Tesco CEO, who went through this process after they had the serious fraud squad had come in. And that was an example of a business that got so obsessed with making money it pushed people to break the law. So that's an extreme point of view. The other side of that is you have what we did in Thornton's Budgens. You have a company like Patagonia, who people join Patagonia because it's a cool place to work. Their whole thing is about doing no harm. It's in their DNA not to do harm and to campaign to save rivers and so on and so forth. So people just get energized by that. And I think businesses that do have a purpose that means something to their employees and their customers, there's lots and lots of evidence, including the evidence that I've shown in the book and in other places, that those companies do better. And the idea of a B Corp, where you focus on stakeholder needs, not shareholder needs. So if you're taking care of the needs of your employees, your customers, your community, your suppliers, and your environment, you do all of those, then the shareholder returns will follow, because you have all these people behind you. So why wouldn't you do well? Whereas when you focus entirely on the profit number, like Tesco did for a period of time, then the whole thing just falls apart.
So why aren't more businesses signing up for B Corp and taking that more holistic approach to leadership? Why are they not doing that?
Well, more people are signing up for B Corp than they've ever done before, which is fantastic. I think more and more people are getting this. And I think it is going to become more and more important going forward, particularly as the millennials and the Gen Z, they are even less willing than people of our generation to work just for money. Now, there are lots, most companies still are focused on money. Most companies will make compromises, environmental compromises, do things that aren't necessarily that ethical to make as much money as possible. But ultimately, it's unsatisfying. Money is, people who are craving to make loads of money, it's like a substitute for love. Don't have enough love, therefore, didn't get enough love from my parents. And all this goes back to our childhood. I mean, everything we talk about in the book and all the teaching we do is around helping us unlearn some of the stuff we learned in our childhood and understand why we behave the way we do. And so many people in the world behave like children. So there's a whole psychological thing about called parent, adult, child, and there's different states we can operate in. And the idea is to try and help people to be in their adult as much as possible.
As you know, I work in the world of packaging. I know you've got very familiar self with alternative to plastic packaging and reducing waste, etc. What have been the sort of the main success stories from your Thornton's Budgens experience? What's really stood out as a shining great example?
Oh, the one for me that my best is produce, fruit and veg. I mean, we and that was that was the easiest one to do. And we moved from a 60-40, which is 60% pre-packed, 40% loose, which is a pretty high percentage of loose as stores go, because of we've always had the view of that. We moved to 85-15. So we'd only 15% of stuff that we just couldn't get the right packaging solutions for. Bagged salads, raspberries, those are the ones that stick to mind.
So very delicate stuff, yeah.
Delicate stuff that there weren't the right solutions for easily available. And I tell you, the store, when we did that, the store just looked stunning. We also did something very important that others have failed to do, because lots of people have said, oh, well, retailers, yeah, but if you go to lots of loose, then your waste will go up.
Right.
And I was talking to the CEO of one of the big retailers about their experience with mushrooms. And they had 10 SKUs of mushrooms. And because when you have loose, you can't have 10 SKUs because of self-service checkouts and so on. They had condensed that down to 2 different broad types. But they kept the same amount of space. And of course, the mushrooms were all going off because they had too much mushrooms out in ambient temperature. So we also changed our fixturing. So we changed the fixturing so that we had we had the right amount of shelves to hold the right amount of stock to keep it looking good and fresh and topping it up frequently. But when you went in, it just looked stunning because all the plastic stuff was demoted to the very little fridge at the very end. So the whole main to either side of the aisle for the first however many meters, 10, 12 meters, was all beautiful fruit and veg with no plastic packaging. And it looked
I'll share some we took some pictures, so I'll share these when we pop the post up. So you're right, it did look so amazing. And that going into the fruit and veg, as you move into the store, it does sort of suck you in, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful.
And then you got the sushi bar just a little bit further in.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and things like fish. It was really simple. Some of this stuff was so simple here. With fish, all fishmongers wrap fish in flimsy paper and put in a plastic bag. So we realized is actually all you have to do is get a slightly less flimsy paper, and you seal it with the paper price label, and you don't have to put in a plastic bag.
Simple.
So some of them were really, really simple.
Some of these solutions were used, 50 years ago, probably less, and they worked, didn't they?
Yeah.
We probably wrapped fish in newspaper print back then, which you can't do now, of course.
Well, why not? Because you're going to wash it anyway. So, but I think, Ian, the thing about this is, my view, therefore, is you can achieve, if you have a company with a purpose everybody's lined up to, and you've got a team of people who are authentically themselves, you can achieve the world. And that's what we demonstrated. And that's why I was so proud of this. And we won so many awards, a number of which are sitting on my cabinet over there. I have to get one. This is my... Sorry.
Come on, show us your awards.
Well, we won, over the time in Thornton Budgens, we won about 25 awards.
Wow.
At different times. And before I sold the store, I got the leadership team together and said, so we're all going to take some of these because they're not just for me. But this is the Grocer Gold Award is for me is the
brilliant.
So I said the only condition is I'm having this one. I don't mind who has what else, but this is and on the day we launched it, I had 3 of the team came to me separately and said, this is the proudest day of my working life. And they were people who were in their 40s and 50s. They weren't kids who'd only been working for a year. But these are just, and people were in tears. I mean, I'm feeling it now. Because we did, and I've been told subsequently by a number of CEOs of food retailers around the world that we changed the conversation, we changed the rules of the game for supermarket retailing and plastic globally.
Fantastic.
And that's quite something for one shop in North London.
And have other retailers tried to, or have they tried to do the same thing or not?
I think the problem is,
if not, why not?
There was good progress being made. Certainly, everybody started to raise their game because and part of our objective was to show the big guys it wasn't as difficult as they were letting it on to be. And they really had to do something. And I think COVID gave people a good excuse to kind of, we can, not to do anything about it. I saw some research recently that said, from a customer point of view, the biggest environmental issue is plastic. And from a retailer point of view, the biggest environmental issue is net zero. So the retailers, and I still believe that I don't think there's any retailer. I mean, we worked very closely with Dave Lewis when Dave was running Tesco, and they were very committed to the whole thing of plastic. I can't say now Dave's gone. It's on my store, so I don't know. But I'm not seeing as I'm out and about in shops in the UK, in Germany, in France, wherever, in Ireland, wherever I'm traveling. I'm really not seeing anything that goes, wow, they're really on it. And I think it's because I don't think there are that many retailers around who have really sound purposes and that are really kind of authentic about it. Because if you are really authentically yourself and you really open your heart and you connect to your emotions, it's really difficult then to be saying, well, actually, I'm going to consciously do stuff that's going to trash the planet. It's really difficult to do that. So I think it's a lack of a purpose that around this, like we had, that is what's stopping retailers. Because we've proven the customers will buy the product. Customers are crying out for solutions. They know they need to reduce their plastic consumption, but they don't know how. Because what do? You go to the supermarket and, it's really difficult if you want to not use plastic.
You're not given a choice, are you?
No.
And that's probably what retailers need to do, is give people a choice. They can either have it loose or pre-packed, but the pre-packed should be more expensive than the loose.
Yes.
Not the other way around.
Yes.
Yeah, fascinating. So what have I got for you? So from a point of view of business, what can they be doing more sort of socially and environmentally to take the agenda away from just profitability and shareholder value? What sort of practical things can they be doing?
Well, I think you've got to connect with your people, and you've got to encourage your people to connect with communities. And that's what we did in Thornton's Budgens. We connected with our local community. So, and people had the freedom to do that. We gave people freedom. People could do things in the store. Everything didn't have to be approved.
Right. They could experiment, in other words. And
yeah. And we were, connected and generous with customers. And, you know, we had people, I mean, during the pandemic, overnight we set up a phone service. You know, we didn't have a home delivery service because it's, as an independent, it's quite difficult to do that. I mean, it's getting easier. But we instantly set up a phone line service, which we passed all the details out. So all the elderly people in the area who were worried about getting out, we were, you know, it was bonkers. So we were, you know, at one point our sales had doubled and half of our team were off with suspected COVID. And then you deliver all this stuff. And we actually got volunteers in the community who came in and delivered the product for us.
Wow.
So, and it was like, well, yeah, so we can do this, we'll pack the orders, but we do not have the resources to deliver it. We just don't have the people. And we put an appeal out, and we had 4 or 5 people in the community who actually helped us deliver it. So it's connecting. It's all about connecting with people. And the trouble with the world is it's going towards the opposite, which is not connecting with people. It's all, you know,
division.
And things like, you know, when you're trying to do something, you've got to, you know, you end up on a call center, and you got to try and, you know, oh, well, please go online and do it, and so on. And I understand that, and there are benefits in that. But ultimately, if you want to be a force for good, then you need to connect with people. It's as simple as that.
So I'm going to go slightly off topic now. So of the people on the planet, alive preferably, who really inspires you?
Well, I was thinking about that this morning when I reading through the notes. So at the moment, I think Zelensky in Ukraine is really, really inspiring, and I feel shivers down my spine because we have so many poor political leaders in the world. Really poor, like really horribly poor, badly poor. And Zelensky has just his ability to capture, to bring everybody behind him. You know, he's got so much of the world supporting him, and it's a David and Goliath. I mean, you know, theoretically the Russians should have just gone in and crumpled Ukraine, but they haven't. So that's one person I think is really inspiring. And I've chosen 3 political leaders because there's such a lack of inspiration to politics. Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand is another one. And I think when she, after that Muslim attack, which she went and she wore a hijab to some extent. And there's something, and it's very easy to watch this from a distance because, you know, from a distance, Leo Varadkar, who was the Irish Prime Minister at the beginning of COVID zone, came across incredibly well. He did lose a general election in the middle of the process, but there's something about it. But something about Jacinda Ardern, she seems very heartful to me. She seems very genuine, and so as does Zelensky. And then the other person is Barack Obama, who I think has a lot of people would say, well, he didn't achieve what he as much as he should have done, and so on. There was a wonderful BBC documentary that was followed him around in the last year of his presidency. And he was so humble. And so often he said, you know, it was great. You know, it was fantastic that we achieved this, but we could have done so much more. And if only I had done this, or if I'd got so-and-so on board. And I just thought, oh, you know, who wouldn't want to follow
He's a true
that?
leader, isn't he? He is a true leader. Yeah.
And I think humility, I mean, some of the business leaders I interviewed in the book, Dave Lewis, I think is a very, very humble, he's a very humble and very committed sort of guy, as is Roger Whiteside, who's just retiring soon from Greggs, CEO of Greggs.
Okay, don't know him.
So those are a couple of people I know in the business world that I'm really inspired by.
What about people that have passed? Who would be the person you would hold up there?
Oh gosh, it's hard to. Oh gosh, I mean, the sort of Gandhi and Mandela are the obvious ones that everybody talks about. I found John F. Kennedy very inspiring. I'm a big lover of American politics, and I think that the vigor and the energy he brought to his short presidency was something that was quite inspiring. And I'm trying to think who else is dead.
Yeah, great choices, Andrew. Mandela, big fan.
Yeah.
So finally, you know what's coming. So what are you reading right now? I guess it's more than one book. And what can you recommend?
So you said at the beginning, what do I do to relax? I focused on the outdoor stuff. The other thing, I'm a really avid reader. So I have always got a number of books on the go at the same time. And I have taken, we were chatting before we started about audiobooks. So I've taken to sometimes at night listening to audiobooks. So I'm currently listening, although I've read it in hard copy, The Architect's Apprentice. So Elif Shafik is one of my favorite authors. She is just wonderful. She's a Turkish author. My favorite book of hers is called The 40 Rules of Love, which is just a brilliant book. And it's about Rumi, the poet Rumi, and it's wonderfully done. So I like to listen to audiobooks that I've read the book before. So I read books multiple times. And I don't like, because then it doesn't matter if I fall asleep during it because I know the gist of the story. This is the book I'm reading, which is my kind of hard book. It's called Unsettled Ground by Claire Fuller. And it was the shortlisted on the Costa Book Awards last night and shortlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction. So I'm really enjoying reading women authors at the moment because they're kind of underrepresented.
Okay.
And then the third thing is that, so I have a 13-year-old, and part of our routine is I read to her at nighttime before she goes to bed.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah.
And I'm reading this book, which is called The Wave. It's quite disturbing. It's about, I only just started. It's by Todd Strasser, and it's based on a true story of a classroom experiment that went too wrong. It's a bit like Lord of the Rings, I think, or is it Lord of the Flies? No, Lord of the Flies, I think.
Yeah, quite dark.
Yes. So we've only just started, there's a big connection to Germany and the Nazis, and Hannah's been, the class have been watching the film, although she opted out of watching some of it because it was a bit too sort of, and in terms of profoundness or impact, recently I've just finished reading that, which is We Don't Know Ourselves, which is a book on Irish history from 1958, written by a journalist called Fintan O'Toole. So he was born in 1958, and he runs this parallel between his life and what happened in Ireland. And as an Irishman, it's really fascinating because Ireland has this wonderful thing of you don't say things to people because that might upset them. Sure, you wouldn't say that because that would offend them. And one of the things we talk about in the book is the importance of having difficult conversations. Because if I resent you for something, it'll leak out. You'll know I'm pissed off with you. But if I say it directly and clearly, then it's much easier. So that's one thing we Irish do. And the other thing is there's a whole thing in Ireland about things are known about but not talked about openly. So we had a prime minister called Charlie Haughey, who was a professional politician, yet he somehow had a mansion and a stud farm and an island and sort of things one couldn't afford. And everybody knew people were giving Charlie checks, big checks, like £1 million punt checks to buy favourite, but it just wasn't talked about. So I found a lot of things about me made sense to me when I read this book. And it's only relevant, obviously, if you're Irish. I mean, it's a very interesting story. And it's a bit embarrassing because some of it you think, like, my God, how? It just makes us look like some sort of backward thing. And the whole thing with the Catholic Church is another whole topic, which I'm not going to get into.
Well, Andrew, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. Thank you for your time and sharing your thoughts and experiences with me and the audience. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Take care.